That's me. Can everybody hear me over the microphone and so on? Just so you know, what we're known for here is smooth transitions. So excuse me, please, as I wander around. If you haven't been here before, I don't usually do this. If you have any complaints, I say this every time. If you have any complaints, you can send them to robknight@gmail.com, and they will go directly to me. How incredibly lucky are we that we live here and now in Canada? We don't live in Yemen or Ukraine or Myanmar now, and we don't live in Canada 700 years ago. We don't live anywhere else at any other time. We live in a time and a place where I can drive from here to a store where I can buy any food I can think of at any time that I want, which means that I can go buy mega stuffed Oreos. Guys, there's Oreos, and there's double stuffed Oreos, but then there's double stuffed Oreos, which we buy and eat at our house. What a time to live. So we live in a fortunate time and place. When was the last time you told your kids, go outside and play, but just be careful because there might be a raiding party coming from Cobden and they might take you? It doesn't happen here. How many people do you know that have lost family members taken as slaves by foreign military commanders or raids or any of that sort of thing? Sometimes being where we are from, when we're from, makes it harder to really get inside the shoes of, get inside the sandals of some of the stories, the people from the stories in the Bible. So for us sitting here today, it'll be difficult to fully empathize with the young lady that we're gonna learn about. Did we get that video working at all? Is that gonna be a thing? Okay, so we're gonna try something. It may or may not work because this is a church and it's like the Bermuda Triangle of technology every single Sunday. So if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So we're going to try it, and as we're setting it up, while we sit here and we sip our warm coffees. I brought mine. It's somewhere. I don't have it on me. And you sit in your nice padded chairs in our temperature-controlled room. We're going to watch something, and it's quick. It's jarring. It was hard for me to watch. So take this as a warning for anybody who's got little ones with them or has a hard time with that sort of thing. It's not long, but if it works, join me. And this should set us up to understand a little bit more the life that the person we're going to talk about went through.
Happy birthday to you.
Make a wish.
Granny.
Hello.
Have you done your homework?
Adam.
For a general strike.
Ready or not?
Here it comes.
Violent clashes with
live ammunition against.
Deserve to get shot.
Have a nice day at school.
airstrikes on rebel position.
We are going to stay.
What's happening?
Go!
Heavy fighting in Richmond.
Dad, where are we?
Rebel forces advance.
Happy birthday to you. Make a wish, darling.
That's good there. I have a 9-year-old daughter. That's hard for me to watch. But I don't show that for shock value. Like I said, I want to use it as a frame of reference for the type of thing that today's young lady, known as today's other woman, went through. So Rob introduced this series earlier in the summer, and it's called Other Women. We're telling the stories about women that you don't usually hear about in the Bible, which is a great idea, but The problem is that you don't usually hear about them because there's almost nothing written about them. So, strap yourselves in for today. I have one sentence to go off of. Today we're talking about a young girl, a young woman, not entirely sure. She doesn't even really have a name. Like the girl from that video, actually. She's just some young woman who lived where she lived, when she lived, and carried on as best as she could. And full disclosure, because it's a mouthful to say Naaman's wife's servant 15 times during the sermon, I had the brainwave that I'd try to give her a name just to make it a little bit easier on me. And I asked Rob about this, and he suggested the name, I think it's Rakumet, because it's Hebrew for the word compassion. That doesn't roll off my tongue very well, so we're not going to use that one. Sorry, Rob. Instead, I had actually just been listening to some Dolly Parton songs. They just came up on Spotify, and the song Jolene came up, and I thought, oh, we'll just go with Jolene. The problem is that as I'm talking, and probably if you're familiar, that's distracting because that's a great song, right? And you're just going to be thinking about that, and you're not going to be listening to me. So we're not going with Jolene either. I just settled on Ginny. Ginny seemed to work. It seemed to fit. And Ginny can be found in 2 Kings chapter 5. So if you have your Bibles, feel free to turn to it. This part at least is up there in tiny little font, so enjoy trying to read that. It says, Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and in high favor. Because of him, the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. Now the Syrians on one of their raids had carried off a little girl from the land of Israel, and she worked in the service of Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would cure him of his leprosy. That's it. Naaman's story is going to continue later on, and we'll get into it a little bit. But that's today's other woman. Naaman's wife's servant, Ginny, realistically, she was Naaman's wife's slave. We're calling her Ginny. And I don't know what her life was like beforehand. I don't know if she was rich or poor, a child or an adolescent or a young woman, a shepherd family, a village girl, city dweller. I don't know. But like that video, I'll bet that she had people she loved that she was taken away from. And I bet that she had places that she went to go and do something special. And I bet you she had special little things that made home home. But Israel had enemies, and Syria was among them. And one day that life was taken from her. She was taken from her family. Maybe they were killed in the raid. Maybe they're hoping that she's still alive. You saw in that video a little girl changing, right? Carefree joy and childlike innocence evaporating in the face of violence. And I may not know how great Ginny's life was beforehand, but I would wager that any youthful innocence that she had dried up pretty quickly into fear. And yet she says, would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Israel, or who is in Samaria. Exclamation mark. I want this. He would cure him of his leprosy. Her master, Naaman, was the commander of Syria's army. For all we know, and maybe for all she knew, this man was responsible for potentially the death of her family and her friends, because raids aren't usually focused on hugs and kisses. And he's definitely responsible for at least shattering her life. If her last birthday was the one at home with all of her family and friends around her, the birthday that she's about to have is that one in the military hospital with one candle on a tray. This morning, we're going to talk a lot about stuff I don't know. I've already mentioned some of them. But the following is a list of things that I can speculate about. I don't know how long she was there. I don't know the relationship she had with Naaman's wife. I don't know what her particular job was or how many other servants, slaves worked with her. I don't know how she was treated, what her days looked like, whether her health was better living, presumably at a rich Syrian's house, than where she was in Israel. I don't even know how much of her own situation she would have understood. But I do know that regardless of the answers to those questions, she had compassion on a hurting man. She displayed forgiveness and godliness that's remarkably uncommon, and it's inspiring. And what happened to Naaman after that? So you may know his story. And we're going to go over it here quickly, more or less. I don't want to say to get it out of the way, but you need to know the conclusion of what happened to him. So it says, moving on in, 4 to 14-ish. So Naaman went in and told his lord, "Dude, this servant from Israel just told me about a prophet in Israel who can totally heal me." I'm paraphrasing. And the king of Syria said, "Bro, you should totally go right now, and I'll send him a message being all like, 'Dude, help a brother out, heal my man.'" And to be really clear, I'm paraphrasing. But I'm pretty sure that's exactly how they sounded. So he went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. I never go anywhere without, 10 talents of silver? Because you can't trust double machines today. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, and for real, it said, "When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you Naaman, my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy." And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God, to kill and make alive? This man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Only consider and see how he is seeking a quarrel with me." So he figures he's being baited into a fight here. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent to the king saying, "Hey, man," paraphrasing again, "why are you freaking out? Send him my way, and he'll see that there's a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger out to him, which is essentially Elisha snubbing him to a certain extent. And the messenger said, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean." But Naaman was angry and went away, saying, "Behold, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call upon the name of the Lord his God and wave his hands all over the place and cure the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and went away in a rage. He's so dramatic. But his servants came near and said to him, "Bro, calm down." They said, "My father, it is a great word the prophet has spoken to you. Will you not do it? Has he actually just said to you, 'Wash and be clean'?" So he went down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And after that, there's another exchange with Elisha for a little while. They talk about money and payment and how that's not necessary. And then it ends with him saying, or kind of ends with him saying, "From now on, your servant will not offer burnt offerings or sacrifices to any god but the Lord." So the compassion of a young woman set in motion a series of events that brought glory to God far greater than if she had stayed in her original situation. Israel's enemy's military commander became a follower of the one true God. And one commentator says it like this: "This young girl was an outstanding example of a faithful witness in her current circumstance. She cared enough to speak up, and she had faith enough to believe that Elisha would heal him of his leprosy." It is inspiring, but this is God's word. This is his revelation to us of himself. So what does this mean then when we read it for you, for me, and for God? Sometimes we read these stories and we think, "Oh, that's great, God works in mysterious ways," and we carry on with our lives. But we can't do that. So here's another story, and it's quite a bit more recent. It's from an organization called the Voice of the Martyrs. Again, I'm going to read, so bear with me. It says, this is a lady named Lyuba Genovskaya in the USSR in the 1970s. It says, "Enough is enough. Lyuba Genovskaya said to herself, 'I will not receive the blows with meekness anymore. Tonight, if they begin again, I will tell the guard to his face that he is a criminal.' Lyuba, arrested for her faith by the Russian communists, was kept in a solitary cell, starved and beaten. Still, she had not denied Jesus or revealed the names of other believers. As so many others, she had patiently suffered for the sake of the gospel. She promised herself that tonight would be different. But that night, when the guard insulted her with foul words and was just about to start beating her, she somehow saw him differently. She noticed for the first time that he was tired of beating her, as he was as tired of beating her as she was of being beaten. She was worn out from lack of sleep, but so was he. He was as desperate over not getting any information as she was about suffering for refusing to betray her friends. A voice told her, "He is so much like you. You were both caught in the same drama of life." Stalin, the chief communist dictator, killed thousands of God's children, but he also killed 10,000 officers of his own secret police. 3 successive heads of police were shot by their comrades, just like the Christians they had persecuted. You and your torturers passed through the same vale of tears. Liuba looked up at the guard who had already lifted his whip to beat her, and she smiled. Stunned, he asked, "Why do you smile?" She replied, "I don't see you the way a mirror would show you right now. I see you as you surely once were, a beautiful, innocent child. We are the same age. We might have been playmates. I see you too as I hope you will be. There was once a persecutor worse than you named Saul of Tarsus. He became an apostle and a saint." The torturer put down his whip. She continued, "What burden weighs on you that it drives you to the madness of beating a person who has done you no harm?" And he had no answer. The torturer left that day, a changed man. And here's another one. This is Maria and Varya, again from the USSR in the 60s. It says, "From behind bars, Varya said, 'If they would free me, I would do it again and tell them about the great love of Jesus. Don't think that I suffer. I'm very glad that the Lord loves me so much and gave me the joy to endure for his name.'" Varya and her friend Maria were 2 Russian classmates. Because of Maria's love for her, Varya became a Christian. At a school assembly, Varya witnessed to those gathered about Jesus, her Savior. Afterwards, Varya was taken away and imprisoned in a Siberian labor camp. She wrote the following words to her friend Maria: "My heart praises and thanks God that through you he showed me the way to salvation. Now, being on this way, my life has a purpose, and I know where to go and for whom I suffer. I feel the desire to tell and to witness to everybody about the great joy of salvation that I have in my heart. At work, they curse and punish me, giving me extra work because I cannot be silent. I must tell everyone what the Lord has done for me. As long as my lips can speak, I will witness to everyone about his great love." So again, what does this mean for you and me? How does a young girl showing compassion to her captor in Syria, or these young women in 20th century Russia, what does that have to do with you and me in Petawawa right now? So despite the fact that none of us, to my knowledge anyway, has had a life that looks like these stories or that video that we watched earlier, we are in situations that we don't like. And I'm sure that you can think of your own, even just common stuff from the day-to-day, posted out to a job or a place that we don't like. Your boss doesn't see eye to eye with you. Maybe your boss is incompetent. Leadership makes decisions that you don't agree with. Family problems. I mean, I'm sure most people here are picturing something when I say family problems in the back of their mind, or something else that I'm not saying, but you can conjure up pretty quickly. And it seems weird comparing these things to the situation that we talked about with Ginny or with these Russian ladies. It seems like they're too mundane. They belong in a different category from all of that stuff. But that mundane nature is life for 99.99% of the people, 99.99% of the time. And if you're going to show compassion in those big times, in those big events, you're only going to get there by showing compassion in those small time events that happen every single day. And then you might think of even bigger situations that we as a people, Canadians, North Americans, deal with. The government leadership says or does something that you don't like or you don't approve of. We have laws that you think are wrong. Society is getting all messed up. There's a balance somewhere between participating in, I have democracy, but I mean, we're a constitutional monarchy, same. There's a balance there, though, remembering that we're responsible citizens acting in a democracy, but we're also very much slaves to God. Do you remember Romans 6:22? It says, "But now you have been set free from sin," great, "and have become slaves to God. The fruit you get leads to sanctification, and it ends in eternal life." Our values may not align with the majority values all the time. But how you approach that as a child of God is important. We can state our disagreement, but we don't whine and complain out loud, online, social media, whatever it might be. That's not what's written in 2 Kings either. Words are cheap, and the only thing that we can actually speak to is Christ crucified. And our actions need to be those that reflect our desire to see the kingdom of God on earth. Remember the prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So yeah, we're part of a democracy, but also, yes, we're slaves to Christ. We have no rights other than to follow Christ's leading through joy into whatever he has for us. So my family wasn't killed in a raid. I wasn't taken as a slave to a foreign military commander, but just like Ginny, I have to live in a way that honors God's intent for my life, regardless of the situation that I'm in. Show compassion, show forgiveness, see the people around me as the hurting sheep that we all are. Pray for my enemy, pray for those who persecute me. But Mark, you'll say, I'm Mark, by the way. How can I do that when I feel just as broken as the next person? How, if I'm a sheep, just like any other person, Christian or not, can I be expected to set the example for them? How can a drowning person save another drowning person, right? And you kind of hit the nail on the head there. We can't. I can't, not by myself. I've tried. It never ends the way that I imagine. So how do we get to a place where we can look at the person responsible for our suffering or for that garbage situation that we find ourselves in and have compassion on them? Like Ginny did for Naaman, or Liuba did for her torturer. Or maybe more realistically for us, that family member who only sees the worst in us or in every situation that they might be in. Or a boss who abuses their authority. Or a military that moves you from a situation that's great to one where you're going to struggle. Well, step one, find Christ and take him for exactly who he is. He's our Savior, he's our sanctifier, he's our healer, he's our coming King. This is an Alliance church, these are things that we hold on to, right? That's easy, that makes sense. We've surrendered to him, we're here. We know that we don't get to heaven without him. But that's not where it ends. That is not the border of Christianity. And we won't end in the compassion that helped Naaman be healed of his leprosy and showed him the supremacy of the God of Israel. So step two, every day, remember that reason that you surrendered to Christ in the first place. That you by yourself weren't enough. That your heart was restless until it rested in Christ. And every day move a little bit closer to God's presence. Move a little bit deeper into his word. Let that hunger for fulfillment guide you farther down the path that brings you to God's center. Every day, remember to hold loosely to the things of yourself, to the things of this world, and hold on tightly to the things of Christ. Don't let yourself get lulled to sleep by a calm expectation of a Sunday morning, a nice experience where you come and sit. And also don't get lulled to sleep by our comfortable Western life. Being a Christian isn't just coming and sitting and listening and maybe singing quietly so nobody can hear you sing out of key, and then going home and forgetting and carrying on with the rest of your life. That's not where it ends. Remember that thirst that brought you to Christ's living water in the first place. It was there at one point. So you found Christ in your emptiness. That's great. Now continue to find him every single day. I remember hearing, there's a line from, has anybody here listened to the Newsboys ever in your life? This is, yes? Okay, cool. I used to listen to them all the time in like the 90s. Still do sometimes. There's a line from one of their songs. And I always really liked it, and I didn't know where it was from. And I recently read this book for a course I was on, and I found it in there. So it's from A.W. Tozer. And he writes, "To have found God and still to pursue him is the soul's paradox of love. scorned indeed by the too easily satisfied religionist, but justified and happy experience by the children of the burning heart. Now, some of that sounds bizarre at first, but that last bit is just as important as the first part. Justified and happy experience by the children of the burning heart. That's us. That should be us. I promise you, if you let that hunger carry you, if you put your focus on Christ and ignore all of the noise, all the news, all the social media, all the issues, all that noise that just hammers away at us, you will be amazed at the love, the joy, the peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control that's given to you. You will be surprised that just talking about your problems, just talking about whatever, it's not going to be enough. What it says in James 2, right there, about faith without works will make total sense. They'll be the same thing. This growing faith will make it absolutely impossible for you to not start doing the things that bring God's kingdom into fruition just a little bit more every single day. And listen, I say this absolutely every time that I'm up here speaking. I am on this path with you, so that somebody doesn't look at me like, oh, that guy's a hypocrite, because I'm absolutely on this path with you, and I guarantee you Rob is on this path with you as well. I mean, Curtis might have it sorted out wherever he is, but I can tell you right now, I don't know how well I'd respond with compassion if somebody took me from my family or took a kid from me. I hope I would respond the same way that our young lady did. Would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria! ! He would cure him of his leprosy. I don't see you the way a mirror would show you right now. I see you as you surely once were, a beautiful and innocent child. If they would free me, I would do it again and tell them about the great love of Jesus. Don't think that I suffer. I am very glad that the Lord loves me so much and gave me the joy to endure for his name. Are you at a place where you could say the same about your troubles? And if you aren't, why not? Have you been tricked to think that the Christian life ends by saying the sinner's prayer? It begins there, absolutely. But it doesn't end there. So embrace the logic that once you've found God, you need to keep looking for him every single day. And as you do this, as we do this, like Ginny did, we'll embody that compassion regardless of situation, whether it's an extreme one or a mundane one every single day. We will be walking examples of James 2. It says, "Count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." I'd like to call up the prayer team.